Have you ever felt that there's something inside you that the world refuses to see? A quiet longing for meaning, an unspoken awakening that whispers beneath the noise of deadlines, emails, and obligations. You play the roles, follow the rules, meet expectations. But when the screen goes dark at night, an unsettling question rises from the unconscious. Is this really it? If that thought has haunted you, you're not alone. For centuries, seekers of truth, philosophers, mystics, writers have wrestled with the same shadow. But few embodied this struggle as intensely as Hermann Hesse. His life was torn between two forces: the need to belong and the hunger for absolute freedom. On one side, the comfort of connection. On the other, the solitude of the soul, aching to step beyond the prison of the ego. Hesse discovered something most of us resist. The meaning of life isn't found in blind submission nor in reckless escape. It is hidden in the paradox of embracing our contradictions, of looking into the darkness without running, of holding both suffering and beauty without letting go of either. That balance is not easy. It requires courage to face trauma, patience to stand in solitude, and the silent strength to integrate all the broken pieces of the self. So here is the real challenge. How do we live authentically without drowning in chaos or being suffocated by conformity? How do we find power without losing compassion? Freedom without isolation? In the next minutes, we'll dive into Hesse's mind, through Siddhartha, Steppenwolf, and Demian, to explore whether there truly exists a path beyond confusion, beyond emptiness. Stay until the end, because this journey may not just change how you see the world, it may change how you see your own soul. From the very beginning, Hermann Hesse sensed that the world around him wanted to shape him into something he was not. Born in 1877 in a small town of the Black Forest in Germany, his path seemed predetermined. The son of devout Christian missionaries, raised in an environment of obedience and discipline, surrounded by religious texts. Yet something inside him resisted. While his parents spoke of faith and duty, Hesse's soul was already yearning for truth beyond dogma, aching for freedom beyond tradition. His grandfather, a scholar of Eastern cultures, told him stories of India, Buddhism, and ancient philosophies. These tales lit a spark within his unconscious, a fascination with spirituality that would echo throughout his life and eventually flow into his most famous works. But such awakening came with a price. As a teenager, he became restless, unable to bear the rigid structure of the religious schools he was sent to. He rebelled, ran away, and his parents, desperate, placed him in a psychiatric hospital. There, crushed under the weight of expectation and his own shadow, Hesse attempted to end his life. This early brush with darkness marked him forever. He realized that if he wanted to survive, he would need to carve out his own path, one not dictated by others. Literature became his refuge. He worked in a bookshop, losing himself in Goethe, Schopenhauer, and especially Nietzsche, voices that challenged conformity and dared to confront the suffering at the heart of existence. Books became not just companions, but weapons, tools of power against the mediocrity he feared would swallow him whole. Have you ever felt that way? As if your essence was suffocating under the crushing weight of expectations. As if your soul was pleading for a chance to breathe. Hesse turned this silent cry into art. His novel Demian emerged as a manifesto of awakening, a story about the split between the safe world of light and the raw, forbidden world of shadow. Through fiction, he explored the battle between the ego society demands and the deeper self that longs for meaning. But Hesse's struggle didn't end with artistic success. He married, started a family, and tried to live the life expected of him. Yet the trauma of inner conflict returned. His marriage collapsed, his wife battled mental illness, his father died, and his child fell gravely ill. Everything he had built crumbled, and once again he was left staring into the abyss of solitude. In that moment of despair, Hesse made a radical choice. He left it all behind and traveled to India, convinced that the answers to the unconscious hunger of his soul could be found in the wisdom of the East. He longed for enlightenment, for a truth that would dissolve the chaos within. But India did not meet his expectations. Instead of pure wisdom, He found poverty, colonialism, and the unavoidable suffering of human life. The outer world could not deliver what he sought. This realization became a turning point. The journey outward only mirrors the journey inward. The truth we chase outside ourselves is always, in the end, an invitation to face the darkness within. From that awakening was born Siddhartha, a timeless story of a man searching for illumination through asceticism, indulgence, and power, only to discover that the secret was not in rejecting or clinging, but in letting go. The river in the novel becomes a teacher, whispering that life is a flow and resistance is the root of suffering. In silence, in listening, in the acceptance of impermanence, Siddhartha, and through him, Hesse, found meaning. This experience defined the essence of Hesse's philosophy, that the greatest battle is not against society or fate, but against the illusions of the ego. He came to see that freedom is not found by severing ties completely, nor by surrendering blindly, but by integrating opposites, light and shadow, solitude and connection, suffering and joy. And this is why Hesse resonates so deeply with seekers today. His life was not a straight line of victories, but a cycle of collapse and rebirth, trauma and transcendence. In his struggles, he mirrored our own, the endless war between who we are told to be and who we truly are. His works are not abstract literature, they are maps of the soul, guiding us to confront the unconscious, embrace the darkness, and awaken to a deeper truth. The greatest tragedy of human beings is to spend their lives becoming someone they are not. Hermann Hesse understood this long before it became a modern cliché. For him, authenticity was not a lifestyle choice, it was survival. From an early age, he sensed that the real conflict was not the one staged outside in society, but the silent war happening inside the unconscious. We are handed a script: study, work, build, succeed. But when the ego plays this role too well, something deeper starts to rebel. The soul whispers that there must be more. That whisper is the beginning of awakening. In Demian, Emile Sinclair embodies this struggle. He grows up in two realms, one of light, safety, and order, and another of shadow, chaos, and raw truth. Society urges him to remain in the light, to accept approval as his meaning. But the unconscious will not be silenced. It pulls him toward the forbidden, toward the darkness that promises not comfort, but truth. And here lies the paradox. To honor that call is to break away from everything familiar. It is to step into solitude, to risk exile, and to endure suffering that few around you will ever understand. Hesse lived this conflict in his own skin. He knew the trauma of being rejected, of watching family and friends fail to recognize the self he was becoming. He understood that authenticity demands sacrifice, and yet he refused to let go of his inner calling. Like Sinclair, he recognized that the path to truth requires looking directly into the shadow, embracing the darkness instead of denying it. That confrontation is terrifying, but it is also the source of power. Have you ever felt it? That tension between who you are expected to be and who you know you must become. Most people silence the question. They cling to the ego's comfort, and in doing so, they lose the soul. Hesse invites us to do the opposite, to risk awakening even when it means suffering, to trust that solitude can purify rather than destroy. In the end, the meaning of life cannot be borrowed from others. It must be carved in the raw material of your own being. Authenticity, for Hesse, is not about rejecting the world outright. It is about daring to live your truth, even if it costs you everything. The water flows without effort, without resistance. Shouldn't life do the same? When Hermann Hesse traveled to India, he expected enlightenment to arrive from sacred teachers, exotic rituals, or ancient wisdom. Instead, he encountered poverty, contradiction, and human suffering. The truth he sought was not delivered by temples or doctrines. It was revealed in silence, in nature, in the flow of things too simple for the ego to notice. This realization shaped Siddhartha. In the novel, the protagonist chases every possible path. Asceticism, indulgence, even wealth and power. None bring peace. Only when he stops grasping, When he sits by the river and listens, does awakening arrive. The river teaches him that life is a current. It does not resist, it does not hold on, it simply flows. And in this letting go, Siddhartha discovers that the soul's freedom lies not in control, but in acceptance. For Hesse, nature became a mirror of the unconscious. The tree grows without demanding permission. The bird sings without searching for meaning. The wind carries both destruction and renewal. None of them cling to an ego, and yet all of them embody truth more deeply than human ambition. He saw that the suffering we create often comes from resisting what already is, from our refusal to flow with the inevitability of change. But flowing is not the same as surrendering blindly. Siddhartha does not abandon his self, nor dissolve into nothingness. Instead, he discovers a power hidden in balance, the ability to be fully present, to embrace both light and shadow, to hold suffering without despair. In solitude by the river, he realizes that darkness and trauma are not enemies but teachers, guiding him toward wholeness. How many times have we fought against what life was already asking of us? How often do we exhaust ourselves clinging to illusions, refusing to let go of what no longer serves us? Hesse suggests that meaning is not found in resisting the current, but in learning to flow with it consciously. Freedom is not absence of struggle. It is the art of aligning the self with the truth that nature already lives. And so the river whispers its eternal lesson. Life does not need to be conquered. It needs to be heard. In listening, in flowing, in accepting the impermanence of all things, we awaken not to escape reality, but to finally belong to it. The greatest trap of freedom is believing we can live it alone. Hermann Hesse discovered this through his own struggles, but nowhere is it clearer than in his novel Steppenwolf. At the heart of the story stands Harry Haller, a man torn between two natures, half refined human, half wild wolf. His human side craves beauty, art, philosophy, the search for truth. His wolf side despises society, recoils from superficiality, and longs for solitude at any cost. Convinced that true freedom lies in rejecting the world, Haller isolates himself completely. He embraces solitude, determined to sever every tie, to live beyond the reach of the unconscious crowd. Yet what he finds is not freedom, but suffering. The more he tries to escape, the deeper he falls into darkness, an abyss of loneliness, despair, and self-destruction. The shadow he thought he had tamed becomes his prison. This is Hesse's warning. When freedom becomes only about cutting ties, it twists into another form of bondage. Many of us today feel the same temptation. We believe that if we could just walk away, quit the job, leave the relationship, vanish from society, we would finally awaken to peace. But Hesse asks, does isolation truly liberate us, or does it trap us inside the echo chamber of our own ego? Haller's tragedy reveals a painful truth. Freedom without purpose collapses into chaos. When there is no anchor, solitude turns to emptiness. Power dissolves into paralysis, and meaning vanishes into the unconscious abyss. This is why Haller spirals towards self-destruction. His rejection of the world is also a rejection of himself. By fleeing the noise outside, he magnifies the noise within. Have you ever felt that paradox? The desire to break free, only to realize that freedom can become another cage. This is the illusion Hesse exposes, that the soul cannot awaken by severing itself from humanity. Darkness is not overcome by running away. It is integrated by standing in relationship to others, to life, to the whole. Steppenwolf reminds us that truth is not found in absolute withdrawal. It warns that the ego, left unchecked in isolation, becomes its own tyrant. To live only as the wolf is to lose the human, and to live only as the human is to betray the wolf. The real awakening is in embracing both, not choosing one against the other. In this way, Hesse dismantles the fantasy of absolute freedom. He shows us that cutting all ties does not bring power, only trauma. Real freedom is not the rejection of connection, but the conscious choice of it. Solitude may heal for a time, but it cannot carry the full weight of the soul. Without balance, the search for freedom becomes an escape into darkness. Freedom is not being alone. Freedom is knowing what you choose to belong to. If Steppenwolf reveals the dangers of isolation, Siddhartha offers a different path. After years of chasing extremes, rigid asceticism, sensual indulgence, wealth, and power, Siddhartha learns that neither withdrawal nor surrender can bring peace. His awakening comes not through escape, but through balance. At the river, Siddhartha listens and discovers the truth. Life is not about rejecting one half for the other, but about holding both at once. Autonomy and connection, solitude and belonging, shadow and light, they are not enemies, but partners in the dance of the soul. To live authentically, one must integrate, not divide. Hesse uses Siddhartha's journey to show that freedom without belonging is empty, and belonging without autonomy is suffocating. The secret lies in weaving the two together. Autonomy gives us the power to resist the unconscious pull of the crowd, while connection grounds us, reminding us that meaning is born in relationship. Without both, the self fractures. How often have you felt torn between these poles? The need for solitude to rediscover your soul, and the need for connection to feel alive. Most of us swing wildly from one to the other, never realizing that the tension itself holds the truth. Freedom is not found at either extreme. It is in the paradox, to stand as yourself while still choosing to love, to belong, to give. Hesse suggests that the path to awakening is not about letting go of society entirely, nor about surrendering blindly to it. It is about conscious choice, deciding where to invest your power, whom to share your truth with, and which ties genuinely honor your soul. This is not easy. It requires courage to embrace solitude without fear, and humility to embrace connection without ego. Siddhartha embodies this balance. He neither retreats permanently into solitude nor dissolves into the crowd. Instead, he creates a space where the self can flourish in freedom while still honoring the web of life. His power lies not in isolation, but in presence, in his ability to accept suffering, integrate shadow, and remain awake within the current of existence. And so the paradox resolves. Freedom is not absolute detachment, but conscious belonging. Autonomy without connection leads to darkness. Connection without autonomy erases the self. But when the two are united, the soul discovers its fullest strength. This is the freedom Hesse leaves us with, not escape, but integration. A freedom where we no longer fear the shadow, nor the suffering, nor the solitude, because we have learned to live in both worlds at once. At the end of the journey, we always return to the beginning, but with new eyes. Hermann Hesse devoted his entire life to answering a question that has haunted humanity since the dawn of consciousness. What does it truly mean to be free? He experienced rebellion, solitude, suffering, spiritual seeking, and collapse. He wandered through the unconscious landscapes of his own mind, wrestled with trauma, and reached for awakening through the wisdom of both East and West. And after all of it, he arrived not at some grand system, but at a simple, piercing truth. Freedom is not escape. Freedom is conscious acceptance of life as it is. Think of Siddhartha. He seeks enlightenment in every possible way. He follows teachers, starves himself through asceticism, drowns himself in pleasure, accumulates power and wealth, but none of it heals the wound within. Only when he sits beside the river, listening in solitude, does he awaken. The truth was not hidden in exotic rituals, nor in denial of the body, nor in indulgence of the ego. It was in letting go, in surrendering to the flow of life's current. The river whispered what no doctrine could teach, that meaning is not in controlling the current, but in learning to move with it. Now consider Steppenwolf. Harry Haller believes that freedom lies in rejecting society completely. He isolates himself, convinced that only solitude can preserve his authenticity. Yet this pursuit leads him into darkness, deeper suffering, and a prison of his own making. His ego, unchecked by connection, devours him. What he thought was liberation becomes another form of bondage. Here, Hesse shows us the other face of the illusion. Absolute detachment is not freedom, but despair. Without balance, solitude turns to emptiness, and the self collapses under the weight of its own shadow. Do you see the paradox? On one side, conformity and obedience. On the other, rebellion and isolation. Both extremes fail. To submit blindly to the crowd is to betray the self. To sever ties completely is to betray the soul. Hesse reveals that the true path is not a war between opposites, but a dance with them. Freedom is not found by choosing light over darkness or solitude over connection, but in integrating them consciously. This integration is the essence of awakening. To awaken is not to escape suffering, but to see it for what it is, a teacher. It is to embrace the shadow without letting it consume us. It is to recognize the ego not as an enemy to be destroyed, but as a servant to be disciplined. It is to allow trauma to become a doorway into meaning, rather than a wound that defines us. Awakening is not about perfection, it is about wholeness. Hesse teaches that life is not a straight road, but a river. Like water, it bends, breaks, flows, and carves through rock. If we resist, we suffer. If we cling, we drown. But if we listen, if we flow, we discover that even darkness belongs, that even suffering carries wisdom, that even solitude can be holy when chosen consciously. In this way, the soul learns not to escape life but to inhabit it fully. How does this apply to us, here and now? We live in a world drowning in noise, where meaning feels diluted, where power is often confused with control. Many of us feel the unconscious pull to disconnect, to abandon the chaos, to retreat into solitude, to silence the noise by vanishing. Others numb themselves in endless distraction, never daring to face the shadow within. Both paths, Hesse warns, will fail us. The answer is not withdrawal or denial, but conscious integration. The invitation is clear. To live freely is to stand in the middle of the paradox, to carry the suffering without collapsing under it, to accept both light and darkness as part of the same truth, to belong without losing autonomy, and to be autonomous without rejecting belonging. This is not an easy task. It demands the courage to look into our unconscious, to sit with the soul's silence, and to embrace the parts of ourselves we would rather avoid. But it is in this courageous integration that we discover meaning. So, what about you? Have you felt that inner restlessness, that quiet call to something deeper? Have you asked yourself if the life you're living is truly yours, or just a script written by someone else? If so, you are already on the path. The moment you ask is the moment awakening begins. And here lies Hesse's greatest legacy. Life does not need to be a war between who you are and what the world expects. There is a third way, a way of integration, balance, and conscious living. Freedom is not rejection, but presence. Truth is not escape, but acceptance. Power is not domination, but alignment with the flow of the soul. The river always flows. The secret is not to try to stop it, but to learn how to listen. In listening, you will hear your own self reflected in the current. In surrendering, you will find a strength beyond the ego. And in flowing, you will discover that the meaning you were searching for has been within you all along. So I ask you, as Hesse might have asked, what will you choose? To cling, to resist, to remain in the illusion, or to let go, awaken, and step into the fullness of your soul?